We...
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Tuesday topic. Hi, Roseanne. Today is effective time and effort reporting with Dr. Debbie Clegg and Dr. Roseanne DiMaria Ghalili. Thank you all for spending some time with us this afternoon. And Roseanne, take it away.
Great. Hi, everybody. And thanks again, Darren. So hopefully this will be the first in a series of tools for researchers to use to effort report and set up grants and pre-award and post-award. So we're really happy to do this. The way that we're going to do today's presentation is Dr. Clegg is going to give us an overview, very high level, of what effort means. And then she'll hand it back over to me. I'll go through some of the nitty-gritties of what this means in CNHP, and then our colleagues in the Office of Research and the Comptroller's Office gave us a beautiful slide deck that they use for training on effort reporting, and we'll sort of walk you through that. But then Darren will make sure that everybody has all of these materials for their own use and reference. So Debbie, all for you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you all for participating. This is not my area of expertise, so I think what I've discovered is that there's a lot of information out there. It's a little confusing. We've attempted to assimilate it in the best possible way we could. But we're also here to answer your questions, and hopefully the documentation that we're providing you can utilize as a reference later. So that's just sort of my own little testimonial. So what I want to just do is just sort of describe what effort means, because I think it's important with respect to the whole overall context. And then I'm going to describe, as many of you know, I sit on many different study sections. And so I wanted to sort of give you the perspective of a reviewer of a grant, because this effort reporting not only is important as you are submitting your grant application, it's also important for the reviewers to understand how much time and effort you're actually going to put into the science or to the studies that you're doing. But so it starts sort of at the granting level, and then it grows and mushrooms. So I just wanted to sort of give you the context of why this piece of information actually will follow you on multiple different levels, even in your progress reports. And so at the end, if we even have time, we'll talk a little bit about the progress reports. There's an interim progress report that I think is going to be very critical for all of us at this point of time due to COVID, where we'll really have to talk a lot about what has happened to our effort, as well as to the others that are sourced to our grants with respect to effort, as well as how our overall program of study has changed due to COVID. And that will be something that you'll need to do in your interim report. So that's just, again, sort of the nuts and bolts of why this conversation becomes so incredibly important to all of us. So this is just the first slide just talks about that know what effort means. It's basically talks to NIH or any funding institution about how much time, and I hate to use the word effort again, but how much emphasis, time, support, all of the, I should have used a thesaurus to come up with other words besides effort. But it basically is how much time and effort you are actually going to put into the science or into the types of experiments that you are recommending or suggesting that you will actually cover. NIH basically also utilizes this as a calculator for your salary. For example, if you say that you're going to put 50% effort on your grant, then the NIH would pay you 50% of your salary. This becomes important, especially not only when we're talking about effort within the context we're going to talk about today, but even with respect to workload. There are many universities who will look at the amount of effort you put on your grant, and then that will give you a percentage of your workload download off of the grant. So you have to think forward very carefully about what this number will mean to you throughout a whole host of different types of documentation. So next slide, please. So we would highly recommend that you contact the business office first, and that would be that you'd want to consult with Anitra, used to be Aisha as well, and as she's departing, we'll hopefully have someone new in her place. But you want to really talk with them about what you want to do with respect to your effort. Also, we have two experts here today on this panel. They would also be wonderful people for you to reach out if you have any questions about how to report your, or to begin to think about your percentage of effort. Next slide, please, because I want to make sure that we have enough time to cover all of the slides. Okay. So you want to make sure that you request on your application for funding a level that really actually fits the needs for the study that you're proposing. I can tell you that if you put an effort too high, this is actually can be a scoreable portion of your grant when it comes to study section. So if it looks too high, all of a sudden we look at it and say, what's up with this? It might cause people to where maybe they were very excited about your application, but now all of a sudden they hit this, they might say, and then they might start being a little bit more nitpicky. So be very careful about requesting the amount of effort that is required. If the effort's too low, then we think, oh, you're not very committed to your program of study, and that also can be a problem. So this is sort of like a Goldilocks, you want it to be just right. And so also if your request is way out of step with respect to the reviewers, but we actually love your grant, we'll ask NIH to reach back out to you and actually see whether we need to change the percent effort on your application. Next slide. So this is really important for new investigators. As a rule of thumb, be sure you put about 25% of your effort on the application. If you put more, we might be a little worried about that. If you put less, we would be very concerned about it. So again, those of you who are new investigators, we will really help you appropriately look at the amount of effort that you should put on your grant. Next slide, please. You make sure that you justify your effort thoroughly. Now there's a portion on
Debbie, are you frozen? Frozen to me.
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah, she's frozen.
Hopefully she'll be back with us quickly.
Darren, you're recording this?
I am.
Okay, I'm going to get off because I do have another meeting starting at 4:30, and then I can listen.
Okay. Oh, Debbie just sent me a message that her power just went out. So
Okay.
Roseanne, you want to take over for a while?
Yes, I'll take over. Okay, so I think, thank you. Yeah, let's go.
We'll share the slide decks with everybody
Yes.
after the fact,
Mhm.
so you can have it.
Keep, so my slides aren't here. Can you keep going? Let me see. Keep going. Nope, back up.
Roseanne, do you want to just share your screen and share
Yes,
yours?
let me do that so I can.
Molly, stop your share for a second.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Now I have to open up the slides. Just give me a second. Thank God we're all family, right? Okay, so can you,
Effort
See my
certification at
slides?
Drexel. Yep.
yes, okay, great. All right. So if you click on this link, there is a link to the website from the Office of Research Accounting, the Comptroller's Office, that has
Actually,
a lot of,
Roseanne, I just see the main thing. I don't see are you in slideshow mode?
okay, let me switch. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Again, if you go to this website, this is our Drexel website, where effort certification, there's lots of background information, and you can find the contacts of all of our colleagues in the Research Accounting Office that can help us with effort certification, and I'll go through that in a second. But before we get started on actually what happens when you get those effort certification reminders, you will all receive, once you receive your funding, you need to think about what you need to start doing post-award. So this is what I call a post-award checklist in terms of effort certification. Congrats on getting your grant, and our CNHP finance team handles all of our post-award work, and everyone is assigned to either work with Jim Hines, Matt Sawicki, or Lindsay Loftus. So if you don't have someone assigned to you yet, just reach out and we'll make sure that you have someone assigned to you. When the PI on the grant is outside of CNHP, you should still let your finance team know that the grant was funded, because the finance team will need to coordinate with their units to ensure that your effort is appropriately charged to the grant, because everybody gets busy and you don't want anything to fall through the cracks. Now, when you put your grant in and it gets awarded, you get your notice of award. The next thing that happens is that an account needs to be set up from Research Accounting Service with a fund and an org for your grant. Typically, so our colleagues, if Genia and Gabby Berrios said that they really would like to see this done before the grant or on the pre-award side, but I think in CNHP we typically set up the research accounts on the post-award side once we know that we actually have the funding. But I'm not going to go into those details now. But just so you know that you can't start charging to your grant until you have a fund and an org for your grant, and your finance team will help you set that up. Now, once the grant account is set up, then charges can be made. And that's when you should really start having a meeting with your finance team so that everybody's on the same page about where to start charging your effort for faculty. Sometimes you put in for a certain percentage on faculty. And once the grant comes in, things need to be changed because of different awards that have come up. And whether or not you're going to hire staff or include a project manager, and whether or not students will be charged part of their student stipends, or if you're going to hire an hourly student to work on the grant. So what happens is, once you decide that who needs to be on the grant, you need to let finance know, and there will be an EPAF filled out. So for example, all faculty member, when you're hired, whether it's a tenure or non-tenure track, your salary is all charged to the general fund. But then as you start getting grants, changes need to be made for your effort on the grant so that it gets charged to the certain orgs. And Matt, chime in if I'm not explaining this correctly. So in order to do this, there needs to be an EPAF form signed or initiated, and Matt, Jim, or Lindsay will start that process, and that then lets that's either so that then there's a labor redistribution so that the funding from the grant your salary can be charged to the funding for the grant. Okay, and then if you're going to hire any new students, then also there needs to be an EPAF form as well for new student hires. So that needs to be done first. And then your effort that's triggered on this labor redistribution and the EPAF is what triggers the effort certification. So effort is approved quarterly, and that is approved by the PI on the grant. Everyone that's on the grant needs to certify their effort. And we are really on a tight timeline each quarter to make sure that everybody's effort gets certified, because the institution has to report this out to the government, especially if we get federal funds. And we'll talk more about that in some upcoming slides. So it's a very short deadline for when you need to sign off on your effort certification. And if there are any changes that need to be made in faculty or staff's effort, then you need to notify your finance team member so that they can then make the changes either with a labor redistribution, which then gets linked to the effort certification. And we'll talk about that more when we look at the screen, the next slide deck. Some other areas for consideration that we won't talk about now, but in the future, hopefully we'll have another Tuesday topic, is that once you do get your grant or your award, you need to think about, do you have any subcontracts outside of Drexel that needs to be executed? Hiring personnel, there's a whole process if you're actually hiring staff on the grant. Charging non-personnel expenses. Do you need a P card? How do you get order supplies through Smart Source? So that needs to be set up. And then you would need a web finance account or access to web finance so that you can monitor expenses. And it's always important to schedule check-in meetings with the finance team, at least quarterly, so that you're all on the same page for funding. And last but not least, if there are indirects that are charged, if the grant does cover indirects, we do have what we call PI overhead accounts in CNHP, and your finance team will tell you how that's set up and how often posting of the indirects are made to your account. And then, of course, the annual progress report, if it's a federal grant that needs to be completed at least annually. So there's lots to do once you get the federal award. Any questions on that before I move to the next slide deck? Okay, and Deb is still not here, right? Okay, so
I am actually back, but I'm only on the phone.
Okay, great. Okay, sorry about that. So how do we certify efforts? So I'm going to share with you some slides next from the Office of Comptroller, and Gabby Barrios, who's the Associate Director of Finance, and Evgenia Bolokin, and who's also on Zoom with us tonight, also prepared these slides. So we'll go over them, and if we have any questions, we can ask our experts here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Molly, can you pick up now on the next slide deck?
Yes, one moment.
Okay.
Okay, is that showing?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. So great. So let's, if you could go to the next slide. And just keep, okay, great. So again, effort, if we think about what, and I think Deb started this conversation, when we look at effort certification here at Drexel, effort is defined as the total of all professional activities which are performed as part of a person's employment obligation. That's associated with the individual's institutional based salary. So this is all professional activity that includes research, teaching, patient care, administrative and other university appointed activities. So that when you go into your effort report, if you do have a federal grant that effort is charged against, or any grant that effort is charged against on the grant, you'll see a breakdown, and we'll see what that looks like in a minute. So effort includes the time spent working on a sponsored project in which salary is directly charged to the grant. And effort is expressed as a percent of total activity, and it's not based on is not based on a 40-hour work week. So it's not that you are working 40 hours, you could work 100 hours, and your effort means that 20% of those 100 hours, that's what you're contributing to a certain grant, if that's what you put down that your percent effort on a grant is. Thank you. So, okay. Great. And I think, Molly, if you could just click all of them, because these are, so this, perfect. No. Okay, thank you. So effort reporting is a method for documenting activity that's expended on all sponsored projects. And it's effort reporting provides the means to verify that salaries and wages are charged to the sponsored awards accurately and reflect the effort devoted. Federal regulations require the certification of effort expended on all sponsored awards. So this is really why it's critical that we sign off, if you're on a federal award, that you sign off on these effort certifications and that we're accurately reporting the effort. Typically, effort reporting is done after the fact, and your personnel action form is an estimation of the allocation that was predicted for each project. If after the fact it is determined that you worked more or less on a grant than was stated, then a change needs to be requested.
And so this is Debbie, I'm going to jump in, and I think that change is only if it's greater than or less than 5% of a change.
Okay, thank you. So why is effort reporting important? It confirms the salary charges are appropriate, prevents overbilling. It assures that we're sponsors of good stewardship of funds, and it documents cost sharing. And it really helps the university create a source of data for federal indirect cost calculations. And you know, indirects are very important for a university if you have federal grants, because then that's extra money we get back on a grant that is used for different, the university can use that to support the research endeavors.
And I'm just going to jump in too, because this is the percent indirects have had to change for Drexel so that it's not quite as favorable, and it was because there was a lot of, we weren't good stewards with respect to calculating or putting all of this information into place. So it's really, really to our best interest that we make certain that we put all of our effort down so that Drexel can get the most favorable indirect rate, and that then benefits you as the investigator as well as the department and the college.
Great. Also, effort reporting ensures that salary caps are enforced. So you may ask, well, what is a salary cap? The NIH has a limit on how much an investigator can charge for their salary. And I don't know that number off the top of my head. But if your salary is over that salary cap, then you can only charge up to that dollar amount on a grant. Okay. So next slide. Okay, so who's subject to effort reporting and effort certification? So faculty, staff, and graduate students who perform any work on a sponsored project and are funded directly or by federal pass-through dollars need to certify their effort. If you hire undergraduate students on your grants, such as student employees or co-ops, even if they're paid through a sponsored award, they don't have to physically go in and certify their effort. Their effort's certified by their weekly timesheets or their biweekly timesheets that they complete. So effort should include any work related to activities, instruction, research, administration, etc., for which the university compensates an individual. So next slide. Again, if we don't report our effort appropriately, we can be audited. Sponsors then may not reimburse us for our funds expended. They may require repayment of grant funds, and that's not something that we would want to do. And institutions can suffer damage their reputation. And there have been federal lawsuits in the past, and you could see Northwestern, Hopkins, and Harvard have had federal lawsuits because of not reporting effort appropriately. So what are some of the benefits of effort reporting? Right now, it's through Banner, and the data is already housed in Banner, and the labor redistribution system is integrated with Banner effort reporting. So there's increased transparency and enhanced end user control and faster updates. So I guess that's something more on the back end that I think is more the finance and the research accounting services. That's not what we see so much as faculty. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. So again, effort reports here at Drexel need to be certified quarterly, and they must be certified within the time frame allotted for each quarter. If you're unable to certify your effort, you need to let your PI know, or someone with firsthand knowledge must approve the effort certification. Maybe you're out of the country, or you're on vacation, or you just can't get to the computer to certify, then let somebody know so that a proxy can be assigned and do it for you. And
And
thanks.
so, yeah, so I was going to say the people who are on the phone with us, they always push out a list of all the individuals who need to do their effort reporting. So those of you who haven't been doing your effort reporting, then what happens is then we have to send out reminder emails and reminder emails and reminder emails and reminder emails. So it's really, really helpful. If the first time you get an email, if you could try and please take care of your effort reporting, it really, really helps decrease the amount of extra work that is taken up by reminding you. And like Roseanne said, if you can't do it, just let someone know and we'll make accommodations. But it's so incredibly important. This isn't just something you can pass off. You really need to do it when we ask you to do it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, what I found a lot of times is that if you in Microsoft and you have the focused mailbox and sometimes those email requests go to the unfocused side of your mailbox, or sometimes even spam. So if you're on a federal award, or if you're on any kind of grant that your effort is being charged to, really keep it on your calendar to check for this. You don't even need to wait for that reminder to come out. If you know when the effort reporting cycle is, you could just go into Drexel One and sign off on your effort that way. So we'll show you how to do that. So the person certifying, whoever's certifying, must have firsthand knowledge of the effort expended. That's why you need to do it yourself, or the PI does. If for some reason you need a proxy, the folks in the Office of Research here in CNHP or Finance can't certify because they don't know the amount of work you did on the grant. Okay. So if if the individual investigator is not available to certify, the PI can certify on their behalf, or the chair or dean can certify, or someone with firsthand knowledge of the work completed. But that's the key there. Okay. And again, Research Accounting Services does let you know when the deadlines are. It's posted on the Research Accounting Service website. Next slide, please. Okay. And so there are three types of users in Banner Effort: the pre-reviewers, and this is in CNHP, that's usually Aisha or Anitra who are the pre-reviewers. I don't know how that might be restructured, but it's someone on the administrative side. The PI and the employee, whoever is having effort charged to a grant, is considered the certifier. And if that employee is not available, then you would have to get a proxy or an alternate certifier. So next slide. Okay, so this is just the workflow, what happens. We'll just wait for a few more clicks. Thank you. So the pre-reviewer initiates the review process and making sure that the effort is correct. And then once the pre-reviewer certifies it, then that triggers the reminder for the PI or the faculty member or staff member to certify their effort. Now, what I find for myself personally is I'm on several grants, and some of my grants, biomed is the lead unit on, biomedical engineering. So I can't certify my effort until biomed does all the pre-review certification. So if I'm on 4 grants and I have effort charged for 4 grants, everybody that's associated with that grant, if it's from different units, the pre-reviewer has to sign off on it in all of those different units. So sometimes it could take time. It gets a little messy. Next slide, please. So navigating this as a certifier. So this is the walkthrough. I've always had trouble doing this, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. So next slide, and thank you so much for putting these slides together. You should receive notification that an effort report is waiting for your certification. You need to log into the system, check that the effort is captured accurately, and then hit hit certify. If you don't agree, then you need to send an email with the desired changes back to the pre-reviewer. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. And so you log into Drexel 1. Okay, then you're going to,
yeah, and this was, as Roseanne said, I just recently had to do this, and it's really not straightforward. So what she said is absolutely correct. You might have done it once and think, oh, okay, I can do it every single time. It takes a while. This is not like just getting on a bicycle and it works each time. So understand that we're also here to help you walk through the process. Matt was amazing helping me through the process. So we get that this is not completely intuitive. So just understand that we hear your pain.
yeah, and it's really tricky because if you're the PI on a grant and you have people from different units on the grant, if there's a change to their effort, you sometimes then have to go, you'll get an alert. You have to certify. Well, what am I certifying? It doesn't tell you. And then it may be a labor redistribution, and then you have to go and sign off on a different tab. So it's very tricky. So if you don't know, just ask someone. So you log into Drexel 1, you click on effort reporting. Next slide. And then if it's that time that you need to certify your effort, you click on the Certify My Effort tab. And then you will see here the breakdown of your effort for sponsored projects and non-sponsored projects. So for instance, the faculty member in this example is on 4 different sponsored projects, and their effort for each project is different. The first one is 3%, then 5%, then 15%, then 1%. The total of all of their grants combined or sponsored activities is 38.38%. So that means the other 61%, if you were a faculty member, would be charged to the unrestricted fund, like in CNHP. That's where faculty salary comes out of. All right, so if that looks correct to you, then you would just click certify. But you'll also see that there's a funding chart there, which gives you, again, a nice breakdown. So if you want to see where all of your funding is coming from, and then up in the upper right-hand corner, it says effort report overview. And you can actually look, if you click on pay dates, then you could see how much money was taken out of, was charged from each grant by pay dates. Okay, so next slide, please. So once the certifier agrees and submits the effort report, the effort certification process is complete, and then the record is locked. So here's where you actually need to click. Once you say certify, then the screen will pop up, and you have to click on where it says I agree, and make sure that you totally agree that this was a reasonable estimate of your effort, because that is what the university is going to, if we get audited, they will say that you signed off on your time. Okay, now if the record is locked, if for some reason you hit approve by mistake, or that there needs to be a recertification, then you need to let Research Accounting Services know. But what you would do in CNHP is either let your finance team know, and that they can start initiating or investigating what needs to be done on the next level. Now, if for some reason you find your effort report is not correct, don't certify it. If you, for instance, maybe there was an error with the amount of time that was placed on one of the grants, don't click certify. Go back to finance, and they will make a change in the labor redistribution and then restart this whole system. Okay,
and again,
so yes.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to emphasize that this may be so important right now with respect to COVID. So we have to make certain that when you're attesting to or stating the number of hours you've spent on your grant, that you've actually done that and you have documentation and support to justify the amount that you're claiming, because clearly we haven't been able to do exactly what we would have done before. So you're going to have to make sure that you have, well, because I wasn't able to have direct patient contact, I utilize those hours for manuscript writing or for literature search. Just make sure that you have a documentation trail somewhere so that, again, in case we do get audited, we can go ahead and justify the amount of effort that you're claiming on your grant.
Thank you. So this slide just talks about, again, the different tabs. You can see a breakdown of your effort by pay period. If you need any comments, if you want to add any comments, when you go in to certify your effort, this is where you would do it. And then you would see the routing queue tab. Okay, so you could go to the next slide. And this is what pay period looks like. So you would have a breakdown by pay period. And here's where if you want to add comments, you can add a comment. And then this is the routing queue. You could see if that, who needs to certify something from on the pre-reviewer side, and then who the alternate certifiers would be for your own, for your report. So next slide, okay. And then these next slides talk about navigating the system as an alternate certifier. So I think in lieu of time, Molly, if you could just flip through them, because they will, again, you have to log into Drexel 1, click on effort reporting, review or certify efforts, reports. And then here is where you have to now look at the, click on advanced search tab. And this is where you have to look at chart of accounts, because you need to locate who you're going to be the proxy for. So you click on which account, a chart code, execute your search. And, you know, here is just, again, this would give you a list of effort reports for which you're assigned as an alternate certifier. And then you could double click on it and then certify here. So this is just another way of doing an alternate certification. And once the certifier agrees, the effort certification process is complete, the record is locked. Again, you're certifying on behalf of someone else if you're the alternate. So you need to make sure that you have, you're aware that the work was completed. And again, if the effort report is not correct, do not select certify effort. Reach out and let someone on the finance team know. So go to the next slide. Okay, and we could just skip through this. Keep going. Keep going. I just want everybody to have these so they have the good full deck. Keep going. Okay, so other effort reporting details. So click over. Okay. Cost share. Cost share is something that's captured on the effort report. And this is really important. And I'll give you an example of something that I experienced on one of my grants. So I'm on a grant with biomedical engineering. They're the PI. And when I started on the grant, my percent effort was a certain effort. And then it went, my effort was a certain effort. And my salary, I was an associate professor. Then I became a full professor and my salary went up. But because my salary went up, my effort then went down on the grant because your effort is linked to salary. And so what we've had to do now is to go back, even though I'm still doing 25% effort on the grant, my cost share is only showing, my effort certification shows that I'm only doing 19% effort. So because we're really getting very cautious about making sure that all of our time is appropriately captured, we've had to set up a cost share account so that we know that 6% of my effort is being from my salary is really in a set aside fund dedicated to this grant. Am I explaining that correctly, guys?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. So you may see more of this done on grants as we really try to capture the full effort of that faculty are putting in on sponsored projects. Okay, so next slide. And this is really important. Our time really needs to add up to 100%. So faculty and staff can't charge more than 100% on their grants. So if you are at 100% on a grant, that means you're doing, if all of your grants total 100%, that means the only thing that you're doing is funded research. That means you can't serve on committees, write grant proposals, or anything like that else like that. That means all of the time that you spent breathing, eating, and sleeping is on those funded awards. You can't do anything else. So you really need, if you're on multiple grants, you really want to make sure that your effort does not go above like 90%, because then that doesn't leave you any time to serve on a students committee, do committee work, do any administrative work. So you really want to watch your effort. Deb, do you want to add anything to that?
No, what she's saying is absolutely so incredibly important. And so when it gets close to being that, we'll have to readjust your effort so that you don't hit that 100% mark.
It's a good thing on one side, but on the other side, you really want to
Exactly.
protect your time. It's a good balance.
You become very employable.
So next slide. And again, also, the NIH doesn't expect that you will have 0% on a grant if you're a PI or other key personnel or as needed. You really, and Debbie talked about this earlier, the percent effort of everyone on your project really needs to be appropriate to the scope of work to be performed. And that is really reflected in your budget justification when you put your grants in. So these are our dear colleagues, Gabby Barrios and Evgenia Belokin, who can really we can reach out to if we have any questions about navigating effort certification. And with that, I'm going to thank you for your time and open it up for questions. And I think thank you, Jim Hines, said the NIH salary cap now is $197,300. So if your salary is above that, then the salary that we use to calculate budget is $197,000. So, questions, comments?
This is Christine. I do have a few questions, but mine, sorry. But my questions, are from somebody who I just started on this path since at Drexel in terms of getting outside funding. And so I'm only at the very early stages, but my question is, it sounds like that all of this process does relate to anyone or any funding, not just outside funding, right? And the other question is there a regular cycle, and is that due at the same time so that I could put it, or is it different for every funder? So, because I really do, it sounds like I should definitely put this into my calendar and make sure that we're regularly following this and putting this together, but I wasn't sure if it's different for each funder.
I'll try to answer that first, and then I'll let everybody else chime in. So the university streamlines this process so that effort certification is across all funders. So if you are on an internal grant and your effort on the grant is in kind, then that's not reflected on effort certification. But if you are on an internal grant and you could charge part of your salary to that internal grant, then you would, yes, have to sign off on your effort. If you are on a contract or with a foundation, some foundations allow you to charge your salary. So you would have to do this even for a foundation grant. Am I correct, guys?
I would like to add a little bit information. So the
Yes.
certification process has been changed recently, and internal grants are not subject to effort certification unless it's a cost share. So if you only work on internal grant, then you will not have to certify your effort.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Sure.
And I think that Christine's question as well was that, so we require effort certification quarterly. So that's independent of whether you have an NIH grant or an FDA grant or whatever kind of grant you have. Drexel requires that you do it quarterly. I think that's the question that you were asking, right, Christine?
Right, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, now my fire alarm is going off. I'll sign off, sorry.
Okay, no problem. A crazy day. Anyone else? So, Evgenia, did I miss? How bad did I do?
Oh, you covered it very well. Thank you so much, Roseanne. It was a
If there's
great
anything-
presentation. Yes.
Anything
Can
else
I
on this?
actually ask a question about if someone is doing in-kind effort on a grant, does that need to be reported in any type of way?
Well, the way our effort certification system works, it only captures effort that has been expensed, which is salary. If the effort is in kind, we don't have system availability to show that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mhm. Unless it's cost shared, but that would not be in kind.
All right, do we have any other questions? No? All right, thank you all so much for joining us for today's Tuesday topic. Please join us next week at 4 o'clock for Community Conversation, White Fragility, brought to us by the Board of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I think it's going to be an invigorating conversation and an important one. So thank you so much, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.